Hello and welcome. My name is Emily Kyle, registered dietitian nutritionist, certified holistic cannabis practitioner, and author over at emilykylenutrition.com. And today we are talking about why cannabis plants growing here in the ground are not dangerous for children. So if you don't know me, my name is Emily Kyle and I am what is known as a canna mom. I incorporate cannabis in all aspects of my life, and that includes my children's lives as well. Cannabis is the foundation of my business. As a licensed cannabis farmer, we have cannabis plants growing here on the property, and my children have grown up learning that this cannabis plant is just like any other plant in our garden. It helps to nourish us, feed us, support us, and take care of us. Now, when I first found out that I was going to be a licensed cannabis farmer, I was so excited, and I shared a video of all of my favorite pictures here in the cannabis garden, including ones with my children. And this really mean woman, I left a comment and she said, putting actual drugs in the hands of your children, what a bad mom you are. And I was so offended because that is just so far from the truth. But unfortunately, I realized that a lot of people actually think the same way she does because they don't know any better. And so in this video, I'm going to give you the scientific reason why cannabis plants are not harmful to children in any way. So before we get deep down into the science, the fact is when we talk about cannabis, what we are concerned about for our children is the consumption of THC. And I of course get that. I absolutely want to keep my kids safe from an unwanted experience, especially consuming THC at a young age. But scientifically, these plants do not pose a risk to children in any way because they do not contain any significant amounts of THC, which could cause intoxication. That means my 8-year-old and my 1-year-old could both be out here. They could take a big bite of this plant if they wanted to, but I can't get them to take a big bite of spinach or kale, so I'm not worried about that. But if they were, it would be completely harmless. Again, there is not a significant amount of THC in the plant that would make them feel intoxicated. Alright, if you are like me and are kind of nerdy and interested in the science behind it, let's talk about it. These plants do not contain large amounts of THC or CBD or CBG or any of the activated cannabinoids. They contain what we know as cannabinoid acids. That would be our THCA or tetrahydrocannabinolic acid, CBDA cannabidolic acid, or CBGA cannabigerolic acid. Not THC, not CBD, THCA and CBDA. Now these cannabinoid acids, they occur naturally in the plant. This is what is abundant in the trichomes right now. These acids, they have their own health benefits. We do see preliminary research saying that they can be very, very beneficial for a wide range of cases. But what we know is that they are not intoxicating. THCA does not induce an intoxicating high like its counterpart THC. Now, if you want to enjoy the activated effects of THC or CBD, we need to undergo a process called decarboxylation. Decarboxylation occurs when our cannabis is exposed to light or heat through either baking or smoking. So when we consume cannabis, whether we're smoking a joint or a bowl, you know that you put a lighter to it. That heat is going to decarboxylate, and that turns that THCA into the THC that you're consuming. And if you've learned anything from me about making homemade edibles, you know that you need to decarboxylate or bake your cannabis flower in the oven before enjoying the activated effects of THC or CBD, because that turns that THCA into the active form of THC. And if you've ever tried consuming cannabis raw and found that you did not get high, this is the explanation for that. Now, once decarboxylation has occurred and your cannabis is now active forms of THC, of course you'd want to keep that away from children because they could consume that, ingest that, and feel unwell. And we don't want that for our kids. Absolutely not. It's part of being responsible parents is knowing what is safe and what is not. So a growing cannabis plant here that has not reached any form of decarboxylation, perfectly safe in the hands of children. Decarboxylated cannabis flowers or edibles that you're making at home that have active forms of THC, absolutely keep them away from your kids. But if you are a home grower and you're growing these plants in your backyard and you are questioning or wondering whether or not it is safe to allow your kids to come out into the garden with you, it is absolutely okay. These plants do not pose a safety threat to your children in any way. Now, again, I just want to make it clear that I am all for the safety of our children. I absolutely do not want your children to come into contact with anything that contains large amounts of THC, because that, if ingested, would make them feel unwell. I am just saying here that these growing plants in the ground are not going to pose a risk. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't take other safety precautions, including locking up your homemade edibles, storing them out of sight, and when your children are old enough, having a discussion with them about what cannabis is, about what THC is, what is appropriate for children and what is not. And again, that's just our role as a parent, how comfortable you feel discussing this with your children. But again, knowledge is power, and having these conversations with your child early on can really set them up for greater success in the future. Other safe practices, aside from storing away in even locked boxes if you need to, is going to be appropriate packaging and labeling so that you don't accidentally serve something that you don't know. A standardized cannabis label symbol can help you if you're making homemade edibles. Appropriate disposable practices, making sure you're not throwing anything away in the garbage that a little toddler could come pull out of the garbage. I laugh as my toddler pulls everything out of the garbage. And then always knowing that you can always contact your local poison control center if you have any questions at all. I recently actually did have to call poison control on my 1-year-old who ate a seed from a poisonous plant here in the garden, but lo and behold, it was not this cannabis plant. It was just a random weed growing in the flower beds. Plants absolutely can be dangerous to children, but at the end of the day, these cannabis plants are perfectly safe for you and your children to enjoy as you're having your family garden and enjoying your backyard crop. Now, if you're not growing outside, if you are growing indoors, there might be a few additional factors to consider, whether or not you have pesticides or any other type of chemical that might be in the way. There might be a risk of carbon dioxide buildup, electrical or fire hazards. So again, just using safe parenting common sense is going to help keep you and your children safe. At the end of the day, I just want you and your family to be safe and healthy and happy out in the garden. Please feel confident knowing that your cannabis garden is a safe place for your children, but please also use safety practices inside the home, especially with pre-made cannabis products. We want to keep everybody safe and happy and enjoying the benefits of cannabis and all that it brings us. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions at all about how I talk about cannabis with my children, about how I interact with cannabis and my children together, please feel free to leave a comment below or go ahead and visit me over at EmilyKyleNutrition.com.